because that is the only way they are going to be able to do justice to something of this magnitude. So without further ado, sorry, Brother Umair, or Brother Jabbar, can we hand these books out now, please? If everybody can have a copy each before we start the next session. And the next session will be led by our Honourable Ustaad Abdul Rahim, who's, as I've mentioned before, he's come all the way from London. He struggled in a 5.5 hour journey on the motorway to get here and be with us today. And Brother Abdul Rahim is currently working in the London Metropolitan Police. He's a police officer, and this is something he does voluntarily, like many of the other ustads. And it's our great honor and pleasure to have him here today with us, to give up his time voluntarily, as I said, traveling Friday afternoon just to be with us. So without further ado, it's my pleasure to hand over to Abdul Rahim to take us through to the final segment of today's program. Jazakallah.
So inshallah, if everyone does recite Durood Sharif, inshallah, we begin. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillahi wa kafa wa salamun ala ibadihi allazina astaghfa, khususan ala sayyidi rasul wa khataman anbiya wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Nahmaduhu wa nusalli wa nusallim ala rasulihi al-kareem. Amma ba'd, fa'awuzu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. As-salatu was-salamu alayka ya Rasulullah. As-salatu was-salamu alayka ya Habiballah. As-salamu alayna wa ala ibadillahi salihin. Amma ba'd. All praise belongs to Allah Azza wa Jal, who has given us life, who has given us opportunity to know Him. And all salutation and salam and durood upon the greatest of servants, greatest of messengers, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, who has shown us the best of ways and best of paths, and to all the blessed family of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and the blessed companions and the righteous and pious, and to our teachers and mashayikhs. Alhamdulillah, you have all been listening, and you should all know the purpose of these retreats and the purpose of why you are here. You have gone through the stages of the purpose of life, and you have seen the presentations, and you have seen some of the slides. So you should really know what your purpose is, the 1 or 2 days you have, so that we understand and we are all on the same page. I want to ask some of you that what is your purpose of today? What is your purpose of this retreat that you are attending? So inshallah we can start here. So anyone, if you can just tell me, why have you come to this retreat? What was your purpose of coming? Because you could have spent your weekend or Friday night and the weekend doing some other things, but why have you come, really? It's really to trigger your mindset, trigger your thoughts, to really understand your purpose of coming. Then we can at least begin from the same page, as it says. So does anyone want to tell me why they're here, or does no one know? Ji, go ahead. So you have come to strengthen your relationship. Anyone else? Walaikum salam. Okay, mashallah. To attain the pleasure of Allah Azza wa Jal. Anyone else? Brother, why have you come today, mashallah? Of these 2 days you're going to be spending here?
First, I said it was closeness of Allah. After the presentations, seeing and tasting.
So at the beginning, the brother said it was the closeness of Allah, but after the presentation, he noticed is to see and taste. MashaAllah. So really, all the things that you have said, it all drives, it takes you somewhere, and they're all good understanding and good objectives. But the real objective that we want to concentrate on in the 2 days that you'll be here or so is only one objective. And the objective is to see and taste, to experience Ainul Yaqeen, to see with the spiritual eye, to open the veils of the unseen. This is your purpose of actually attending. Alhamdulillah, all the other purpose is good and well. You can achieve this, but especially for this 1 and 2 days, specifically is to open the spiritual eye. This is your purpose. So you should know why you are here. It's not just to attain the pleasure of Allah, but really the purpose is to open the spiritual eye, to see the unveilings of the unseen. That is our purpose. So now everyone should know that this is your purpose of the 1 or 2 days that you be here, and to try and achieve this. So everything has a purpose, and this is our objective and purpose for 1 or 2 days, inshallah. So what we'll be going through is the most important aspect of achieving the unveiling of the unseen. The most important 7 major obstacles to spiritual opening. So what is the obstacle between you and the unseen world? What lies as a barrier to you and me? What is that barrier that people find it as a barrier, as an obstacle? What is this? And this is what we'll be going through. What is the obstacle that people face? What the obstacle people find in the spiritual opening? So in this part is an interactive session. So like for example, we'll be going through a review of the things that you go through to your day-to-day lives, some of the obstacles. So for example, in the day of judgment, everyone will have to account for themselves. Every one of us will be accounted in the day of judgment. The way we lived our life, the way we interacted our life, the way we used our body, the way we used our mind, our hearts, our souls, everything will be accounted for. So in the world of the hereafter, this will be a big review. The biggest review will be in the hereafter. But now what we'll be doing is a very miniature review of your life now, to know where you are now, what is the obstacles that you are facing. So this is what we'll be going through, inshallah. And at the end of the session, you should have identified what the obstacles are and also some of the solutions as well. If you haven't found the solution, then at the end you can still see one of the ustads. So you have Ustad Dr. Shalom who will be here, Ustad Brother Gulfam will be here. There's many ustads that will help. Any questions you have in this session, they will help you as well. So we'll be going through the book that is in front of you. So if you turn to page 43 of your books, and you find the chapter which says individual reviews of the spiritual journey aspects of life. So once you've turned to this page, inshallah, if you start looking towards my direction there, then it's indication you have turned to that page. So as you can see, it says review. Review of your life now, up until from beginning of this life to now. And like I said, the biggest review of all of us will be in the day of judgment, when everyone will have to review, everyone will have to account for themselves. So if you turn the page, it mentions these 7 major obstacles to spiritual opening. So in this book, you will be going through, you will be writing down, so make sure you all have pens. Has everyone got a pen? If you haven't, then put your hands up if you haven't got a pen. So one brother at the back. So this will be interactive session. So this is a personal one-to-one book for yourself. So you shouldn't be looking at what others are writing or the person next to you. This is your individual book. So you'll be writing down personal things about yourself. You don't have to discuss it in this session, but I'll just go through it to trigger your memory. So whatever comes into your mind first, then you should write this down, what we discuss. The first thought that comes into your mind, so when I mention is there any sins relating to the tongue? What sins? Have you got a problem with the tongue? What is it? Then you'll write it down, whatever the first thought that comes in. Sometimes, to make it easier as well, maybe you don't want to write everything down. You can write even in codes as well. So people don't, if you are fearful that someone sees this book, then write in codes, whatever means to you, because this is your personal journey. Many of you have also, there's 2 kinds of people in this gathering. There's one kind who have participated in the retreats previously. For them, this is a review of your previous retreat. So you should know what you wrote on your last retreat and where were you before. What obstacles you were facing. Have you overcome them? Or are you still going through hardship? Are you still finding difficulty? So you should review again. The more you review, the better you become. So like Hazrat Ali radiallahu anhu mentions, they said that a person should account before he's accounted in the day of judgment. So every day you should account yourself what you have been doing. Because the angels are accounting, angels are reviewing every day what we are doing. So this is a personal review. So inshallah we'll go through this, and the first thing you see in your screens is the 6 obstacles that is listed here, but there is a 7th one. So one of them is to relating specifically about yourself. 4 elements of yourself, which is the body, the mind, the heart, and the soul's relationship with Allah Azza wa Jal. That's the first obstacle, first major obstacle that people find to spiritual opening. The second is the spiritual relationship with Allah Azza wa Jal. The spiritual relationship with Allah Azza wa Jal. The third is the major life problems that a person is distracted from Allah Azza wa Jal. The fourth is unlawful wealth, unlawful means that distracts a person to the relationship with Allah Azza wa Jal. The fifth is the marital relationship, which distracts a person. The sixth is relationship with one's parents, spouse, friends, family, colleagues. And the seventh is to do with submission. So we'll go through each one of them. So this is just a review of all of them. So you know at least these are the 6th or 7th major obstacles. So some of you already done this. So it should be a recap for you. That am I still finding it difficult? Still overcoming these things? So inshallah, the first one we'll go through is the body's relationship with Allah Azza wa Jal. Am I disobeying Allah Azza wa Jal with my tongue, my eyes, ears, hands, feet, stomach, and modesty? So we go through each one of them one by one. So can someone give me an example of how a person can disobey Allah with the tongue? Ji. Swearing. Anything else? Backbiting. So there is more. So I don't want you to... You should list not 5 or 10 or 15, but at least one, 2 or 3 sins that you're finding difficult. If you're finding nothing difficult on the tongue sheet, then just tick. Then just tick. But at the end, you should know that what is becoming your obstacles in this. So what are the obstacles of the tongue? The tongue is such a major, you can say, organ of the body, is that Allah Azza wa Jal has given 2 barriers of the tongue. 2 barriers in front, so that the servant safeguards it. What are they? So the tongue, in front of it you have the teeth. And then in front of it you have the lips. There's 2 barriers Allah Azza wa Jal has given so that the servant safeguards the tongue. It's such a dangerous piece of flesh that with the tongue you can harm, you can destroy people's lives with the tongue. If you hurt someone's feeling, it is actually worse than breaking the Kaaba. This is the major thing that the people go through. So even the Prophet ﷺ says, whoever can guarantee me 2 things, he'll attain Jannah, which is the tongue and the private part, the modesty. So the second part, which is the eyes. So what sins are relating to the eyes that people find difficult, that people sometimes find difficult? You don't have to mention yourself, but what are some of the aspects? The eyes. How can someone disobey Allah with the eyes, for example? Can someone give me? So looking at non-mahram. So looking at non-mahram, or looking at things, unlawful material. Or even looking at someone with jealousy. Looking at someone with hatred. This is also disobeying Allah with the eyes as well. So inshallah you should write these things. That what do you find this difficult? Do you find the eyes difficult? Or is there anyone you find who, when you're with someone, you find difficult? Like we mentioned about the tongue. When you do backbiting, is it some specific person you are with that you begin to backbite? Are they becoming your obstacle? If it is, then you can write that person's name down, even just to trigger your mind, that maybe you should keep a distance from that person as well for a while. To actually, so that you become stronger against shaitan, you become stronger against your own self. So another thing we can go through, which is the ears. So what is the ears relationship then, that a person can disobey Allah with? The ears. So give me an example of the ears. So you went through some of the things already, so you should know this. So listening to music. So listening to music is also one. So listening to something unlawful. Listening to other people's conversations. Listen to backbiting. Imagine if the Prophet ﷺ was with you now and you used your organs to listening to backbiting and entertainment and gossiping, do you think they will be happy? Do you think they will be pleased with you? So what to say about the hands? So give me an example of the hands. Anyone? So fighting. So it depends who you fight. If you fight shaitan, then it's a good thing. If you fight your nafs and your desires, then that is a good thing as well. So fighting, what do you mean by fighting? So fighting using physically hurting someone. Physically hurting. Yes, that is against the wisdom, against the relationship, against the teaching of Allah Azza wa Jal, to harm someone. Anything else? How else can we disobey Allah with the hands? Sorry? Distributing unlawful things. What do you mean by that? Expand on that. Selling haram. So expand on that, would you? So selling drugs, alcohol, so drug dealing. Thieving, so stealing from someone. Stealing from someone. You were saying, Brother Tasham?
Writing, signing of fraudulent papers.
Yeah. Yeah. So committing fraud is a major thing. And many people unfortunately in these communities, especially our community, is a major thing. They commit fraud. They say that they are disabled and they are not. They are earning unlawfully, or they are earning without telling, the tax people. There's been an incident once that they lied so much that they said that they are disabled, that one of their legs is disabled and they could not move. They were lying and they were committing fraud. So once the investigators, they investigated this person. So you see, they're private investigators. So people who were undercover, they were watching how this person is claiming that he cannot walk and he needs a stick. Let's see what he does during his day. So they were taking pictures and video, and he was going shopping, and not only he had no stick, but he had 2-3 bags of meat, and he was taking, and etc. So they took him to court, and they said to him, "Sir, we want to know which leg is the problem leg. You're saying that on our records, you're saying you had operation and you fell and you have problem. Which leg it is?" And he actually said the wrong leg. He lied so much that he said the wrong leg as well. So what is this? It is really Allah Azza wa Jal in return is showing him in court that how he was disgraced in court, because the truth always sometimes comes out in this life as well. One person, maybe not all truths are revealed in dunya, but in akhirah everything is revealed. So what I'm saying is that when you start lying, you begin to believe in it as well. So the person becomes, deceives himself. He deceives himself. Before, shaitan is deceiving him. Shaitan is deceiving him through the body. Then what happens? He begins to follow shaitan. Then he begins to deceive himself as well. So much so he did not know which leg he had injury of. So the hands is another major thing. So touching even non-mahram as well. So people, hugging, handshaking, etc. And it become a norm now, these things. So even it is said in a hadith, it is better to touch hot rod or coal in your hands than to touch the opposite agenda. Imagine this. It is better to have hot coal or rod, hold on to this, than to even touch a non-mahram. But how lightly people are taking these things nowadays. So even touching. So what to say about the feet? So give me an example of the feet now. Gee. So walking to unlawful places. What is unlawful places? Give me an example. The clubs, pubs. So basically any place where you will violate any of these organs. Simple as that. Any place you walk, any place you drive, any place you meet where you violate this, all the 7 organs. This is a place where you will where you will disobey Allah's command, and that will become the blockage for you. That will become the blockage for someone. So, inshallah, write these things down. So we're just going through it slowly, but at the same time, you should be thinking as well. So, inshallah, take time of thinking these things as well. So I'll give you 1-2 minutes as well to think about these things. Think about what have I been doing? Have I been violating any of these organs that has been mentioned? Whenever it comes, triggers in your mind, remember you did this. Do you still have a problem? Am I still finding it difficult? Then write it down. And then it will be, who is making me do this? Or who am I with all the time that I violate these organs? Write that person's name down. So you are aware. Write it in code if you want to, like I said. So the modesty is another thing. So modesty, like we mentioned, the Prophet ﷺ mentioned, this is also a major aspect. That if you can purify, if you can overcome the modesty, then you'll guarantee paradise. So modesty. So what do we mean by modesty then? How can you violate this organ? Can you give me an example? Sorry?
Being boastful, showing off.
Showing off. So we're talking about modesty, meaning the private area where, for example, not keeping it clean, for example, that can be violated. Doing wrong things with it, that person shouldn't be doing. Zina, for example. So people should safeguard these things unlawfully. Some people even say even masturbation. People don't want masturbation as well, doing this. So this is why marriage is there. And there's other ways a person can distribute. You can say, this is why being married, getting married, it actually safeguards the modesty as well. So we mentioned about the opening the eyes to the spiritual world. So we're going back, so the Sayyidina Abdul Dabbagh rahimahullah mentions, they said that if you want the spiritual eye to be open, if you want your spiritual eye to be open, then you must close your physical eye as well. So what does that mean? You must close your spiritual eye. 2 things it's mentioned in there. One is closing the spiritual, closing the eyes, physical eye. What does that mean? Is do not do sins with the eyes as well. Because if you want to see the blessed smile, the angelic realm, you want to meet the prophets and messengers, you want to meet the companions, how can you meet them if your eyes is seeing unlawful images? How can you? How would Allah allow this to happen? With Allah's fazl, it can happen. With Allah's mercy, it can happen. With true repentance, it can happen. Another thing is closing this eye, meaning that you should follow someone blindly as well. You should follow someone. Whatever they say to you, you should follow. For example, if my eyes is closed, then I can't see anything. What can I do? I can hear. And that person is telling me go straight, then do a right, then do a left. And not only that, I can feel them. They are holding my hand and they're taking me. They're walking me. That's what it means. Is that go and find a guide. Go and find a guide who can take you to the spiritual world. So 2 things. One is to close your eyes from sins, from all sins, especially the eyes. And second thing is that you become blind. Let someone else guide you. Don't think you know everything as well. So has everyone written something in relation to each point? Have they at least did a tick, or they've written what triggers them towards sin? Also right on the side is that there are 7 of them. How many of them, of the organs, affect you? So is it 3 out of 7 affects you day to day, week by week? Or is it 5 of them? Or is it 1 of them? At least you should know. So how many out of 7 is that you finding difficult? So has everyone done this? They've written something? So we'll go to the next part of it. Still the relationship between the body, mind, heart and soul's relationship with Allah Azza wa Jal, but the second part of it. So this is relating to the mind's relationship with Allah Azza wa Jal. So the mind's relationship. So before it was easy, before you could see what you were doing wrong, before it was easy, like I said, with your eyes, if you see something wrong, you can close your eyes. With the tongue, you can stop yourself with your teeth, the first barrier. Then your lips. You can stop your tongue from saying anything unlawful. But now, the mind stage is happening inside you. It's an internal thing now. So the first thing is that, do I entertain the thoughts against Allah's command? So what does that mean to you? Do I entertain the thoughts? So what does that mean, Ji?
For example, if one has like a lustful thought, he just starts to think about it more and more, and he'll end up indulging in this.
Inshallah. So you're saying that if someone has lustful thoughts, then he will think more and more and then he will indulge. That's correct. It's basically if you entertain it, if you fantasize it, if you carry on, thoughts will always come inside you. This is thing that you don't have full control of. Even the companions had thoughts coming in, evil thoughts, whispers coming in. But they did not listen. You have control. You are in the command center. You are in the command seat. Do you allow it to enter and penetrate inside your mind and heart? You have control. Do you allow it to go? How do you do this? It's like, for example, the awliya. What happens? Whispers are coming inside the mind, but it's also leaving like the wind as well. It's being diverted, like traffic is being diverted, a one-way road. One way out. It comes through one ear and it goes through the next. This is how the mashayikhs are. They don't entertain it. They don't even allow it to penetrate it. But for you, think about it. Is these thoughts, am I entertaining these thoughts against Allah's command? Think about, when does this happen? Is it when I see a non-mahram that walks past? It comes in the mind. But does it say, is that person nice? Am I going to look again? Sometimes people think it's easier to fantasize than to do the action. Sometimes people live like this as well. They're just fantasizing and etc. They live in fantasy world. They daydream, you can say, daydream in the fantasy world. Like the brother has mentioned, when you fantasize again and again and again, what happens? The lust, the desires build, the want, until it wants to touch. Whatever the eyes see, it wants it. That's how it is. Whatever the tongue talks, then it wants to actually go towards that direction. So think about these things. So inshallah, be honest as you can. This is about you and between you and Allah Azza wa Jal. It's not about any person here. I just want you to go through and listen to these things, but you should be thinking about these things as well at the same time. So the next part is that, do I think bad of Muslims? Do I think bad of Muslims? So can someone give me an example? What does that mean, thinking bad of a Muslim? Ji. So judging someone. So give me an example. How would you judge someone? So if you see something bad and then you say this person is like this, is that way? So for example, someone might see that a person is walking in a drunken state, right? And the mind and the thought comes, he's drunk. Is this right or wrong? It is wrong because you're presuming, your presumption, you're presuming that he's drunk, but he may not be drunk. He may just have a limp. So the person should not escalate to a conclusion, really. Still not. Like it's mentioned, you should make hundred of excuses before you actually blame anyone. You should make excuses for someone rather than anything else. So someone who openly sins, then that is different. Still, you should not think bad of someone, bad of a Muslim. What people don't understand is that we should hate the sin, but not the sinner. We should hate the action, but not the person. This is the difference. You should distinguish this. But people, what happens? They hate the person instead. But Allah Azza wa Jal, the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, they love the servant. They want the servant to return. The Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam loves each and every one of us still, even though we know our shortcomings. They made prayer for us. They're making prayer for us. But we know what we are doing day and night. So example, we mentioned this, is the next thing is that, am I heedless of Allah's remembrance, and how often? So how often in a 16 hours or so, how often do I remember Allah Azza wa Jal? How often do I remember? So you can say, is it, how much percentage of the time do I remember Allah in the 16 hours that you're awake? In wakeful state, how often do you remember Allah? So sometimes people pray in salah. They're meant to be in salah, but do they actually remember Allah? How many times do they remember Allah? They go to visit the grave of their relatives. They go to Fez, Morocco to see the awliya. They go and see the Prophet ﷺ in Medina. But how often do they remember Akhirah and their deaths? Do they remember their own death? It doesn't happen sometimes. So what I'm trying to say is that how often do we remember Allah? How often do we remember Allah? So like we mentioned, everyone has a phone. Everyone has a phone. They have a companion. They never leave without it. It's the first thing we look at when we wake up, and it's the last thing we look before we go to sleep. But how often do we remember Allah? Do we remember Allah before we go to sleep? As soon as we wake up? How often do we look at the screen of this phone? But how much is this phone can benefit me? How often do we remember and think of Allah Azza wa Jal, who is the one who can benefit you more than anything, anyone? So this is what you should be thinking, that how much heedless, how much remembrance, how much do I often remember Allah Azza wa Jal? So think of this and then go through, write down in 16 hours, how much percentage of the time do I remember Allah? Is it 50%? Is it 60%, the majority of them? Or you can do it, is it 10 out of 10? I remember. Or you can even write that, when do I don't remember Allah? Is it during the night times? When I'm at home? When I'm on my internet? When I'm going through the YouTubes? etc. You know, the thing is with this is nothing new I'm talking about. Every single one of us know our problems. But what is this we're talking about is to review and think about the problems that we're going through. So has everyone written something on that? So do I practice more negative thinking or positive thinking? So someone tell me, what is negative thinking then? Give me, what do negative thinking means and what does it mean? And what does positive thinking mean? Yeah.
Negative thinking, like, you never see yourself getting out of a bad situation. Why me?
Right.
Do that.
Right. So negative thinking, you're saying situation where you think you're in a bad situation. Okay, right. Anyone else? Yeah.
Circumstances of your life.
Circumstances.
You're not happy with whatever's going on around you within the family
Right.
or within yourself. So you're always thinking negative.
So you're thinking negative, meaning that you're never thinking that everything is going well for you. Okay, right. Hamza, these are all good. MashaAllah, Ji.
Your interaction with other people,
Yeah.
if they make a mistake, you think negative of them rather than thinking positive, maybe why were they angry because they had a bad day at work.
Right. So right, so whenever someone makes a mistake, you either see is as a negative from it or a positive from it. So simple thing to summarize what negative is. Negative thinking or negative is seeing bad in that situation. Simple as that. Seeing bad in everything that happens to you. And positive is seeing good in every aspect of it. So for example, let's have an example. So one of the example could be is, for example, I had a bag or I had a wallet that I placed on the table and I turned away and my wallet is gone. And money inside there, £200 is gone. So I can become negative in there. I can take the situation as a negative situation. How? And I can take it as a positive situation. So there's always elements of negative or positive. It depends which one you drive from it. Every single situation has a positive and negative factor. But it depends which one you drive from it. So for example, let me explain. For example, someone has taken the money now. So a negative thought that can come in is that I want to beat that person up. I want to harm this person. Why did he take my money? This is mine. It's my money. I earned it. It's mine. It doesn't belong to him. I want to harm him. As soon as I find him, I'm going to harm him and I'm going to take my money. Not only mine, I want to take his as well, etc. The positive aspect. So someone tell me, how can you take it as a positive? MashaAllah. So the positive you can take from it, maybe, like the brother said, that person might benefit more from it than me. Maybe I will waste it. Even more than this money is not even mine. This money is Allah Azza wa Jal. It doesn't even belong to me. Everything, this is why we say, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Soon as something happens, the believer is reminded that everything returns to Allah and everything belongs to Allah Azza wa Jal. So from there, every negative, any bad situation can become positive. You can turn it into a positive reaction. So you had a question.
Yeah, I was going to say, can you be a bit of a mix of both? Because you might initially have a negative feeling towards it and then it starts becoming positive.
Yeah.
Or back to negative. Like, sometimes it switches off.
Yeah. See, someone can go through this as well. So sometimes the nafs actually brings this up. For example, like that example, immediate reaction could be the nafs saying, it was mine. How dare he take it? I worked hard for it. Or I want to harm him. But when you use your own willpower, then the will of power comes in. The person's real state will then come in, and then the positive nature will then come in. So this is a good thing. What it shows is that when immediate reaction comes in, is when the nafs immediately reacts to it. But when you settle, this is your real reaction really. It will come in. That's when the true reaction will come in, and it will counsel the negative aspect. And that's how a person should be. So what we're trying to do is that more you practice positivity, the more nature, the more nurtured your reaction will be. Do you understand? So the more you practice this positivity in your life, the reaction, your nafs begins to be trained, to be controlled, to react in the best of ways. This is what we're trying to say. So going back to the question is that, do I practice more negative thinking, or do I practice positive thinking more? So inshallah, you should write this down. And the next aspect is mentioned is that out of 100%, how much is it? So is it 30% negative thinking I do and 70% positive, or the other way? 70% negative thinking I always happens, or is it 30% positive thinking? So inshallah, give a percentage as well in there. So any questions on relating to this? So be free. If you have any question, you can put your hands up as well. So this is interactive, what we're saying. If you have any question that comes, you can ask as well. So you should all write things, be writing down as well, inshallah. So the next aspect is, do I spend times in reflecting upon the creation? So do I spend time reflecting upon the creation? So what does that mean? Can someone give me an example? What does reflecting upon the creation mean? Ji. Yeah, so whatever Allah Azza wa Jal has made. So what has Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made, and how would you reflect? Give me an example of reflecting. Ji? So what about neighbors, surrounding area? What do you mean by that? Reflecting. So right. So the Prophet is saying that how to think about the neighbors, the locality, the community, and how to bring people towards the pleasure of Allah. Alhamdulillah, that's one aspect. But I'm even thinking even more when you look at things. When you look at the things.
Appreciating the blessings Allah given, all the beauty of Allah's creation.
So the beauty, looking at the beauty of Allah's creation. But what am I looking for? I'm looking for one specific sentence really. Is to do what with it? Okay, you look at the beauty, but what were you going to do with the beauty? Ponder, but something else I'm looking for specifically. Someone said appreciate. Praise Allah. Okay, praising Allah. But even more, how can you praise Allah if you don't? So someone said worship, someone said shukr. The key aspects I'm looking for is to take a lesson from it. Take a lesson. So whenever you look at the creation, you should be taking a lesson from it. Applying it. Taking a lesson. So again, do I spend time in reflecting upon the creation? So for example, when you're looking at something, when you're pondering about something, you should be taking a lesson. So there should be a lesson. Everything that you look at, there should be a lesson. So like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned that everything is a sign of Allah Azza wa Jal. And those who ponder and reflect, they are the beneficiaries. They will benefit. So for example, when you look at the sun, when you look at the sun, obviously it's not good to look directly at the sun, but just the sun itself, Imagine the heat that it gives out. It's about 64 million miles away. 64 million miles away or so, the sun compared to the earth. But imagine people still getting sunburnt. Imagine through that sun, the plants are being risen, is coming. But look how hot this sun is. Any closer, if the earth becomes any closer to the sun, then this earth will be non-place to live. You cannot live in earth. Any further away from the sun, then it's too cold. Imagine, Allah made everything perfect. But the sun, one reflection is that it reminds a person of the day of judgment. That imagine if the sun is 64 millions of miles away, millions and billion miles away, and it affects the person, what to say about the sun and the heat in the day of judgment? What to say about the fire? When you look at the fire and the burning fire, what to say about this? So it's to reflect. Like you see, everyone is sitting on carpet now. How comfortable that carpet is that you are sitting on, that Allah Azza wa Jal has given you. How nice it is to walk upon this soft carpet when you are walking. What to say in Akhirah when people will be walking to Jannah, will be led by the Prophet ﷺ. How the softness of the carpet or the how softness of the floor, that will be. Imagine. And the flip side will be, imagine how soft it is now, but in Akhirah, how it would be. Like you see, the plants are growing. You have the plants growing, dying every year or so. Allah is giving life. Allah is giving life. Every spring, Allah gives life. Every autumn, the leaves are falling. Life and death, Allah, we are seeing in the examples of plants. Can you see? There's so many examples when you look at the world. For example, even children, they always ask the parents questions. They ponder and they ask them, why is the grass green? Why is the earth round? Why is this like this? They are pondering all the time. They are pondering. So even us, we can take a lesson from even the children as well. We can take a lesson from children because they are pondering, because they're seeing first time, but we become used to it. We become used to the sun. We become used to everything. We don't see, we don't appreciate, we don't take lesson from the creation of Allah Azza wa Jal. But imagine our children, the youngsters, they are taking lesson, they are asking questions as well. So spend time. How often do you spend time when you are walking, when you're going to work, when you're doing things in your own time? How often do you reflect? And this should be reflecting. So this is a task you should be doing, is that at least 5 to 7 aspects of reflection you should be doing every day from the creation. So every day from now on, between 5 to 7 things that you see in your life as you are walking, talking, whatever you're doing during your daily life, you look at it and you reflect upon it. You think of Akhirah upon it. You think of Allah Azza wa Jal. How does it apply to you? What lesson is there for me in there? It could be the cold. It could be the breeze. It could be when you are sweating, the sweating of Akhirah, the heat, the water when you are drinking, etc. So take a lesson from the world and the creation. So inshallah, you should be writing, inshallah. So as we move on to the still on the first section, the third aspect of the servant to yourself is your heart's relationship with Allah Azza wa Jal. So we're talking about the heart's relationship with Allah Azza wa Jal. So what does that mean, the heart's relationship? So the heart we're talking about is where the good and the evil qualities lie, is in the heart. So for example, the first one we're talking about is that am I more humble or more arrogant? So think about this. Am I more humble or more arrogant? So you should be looking at yourself, reflecting. So can someone tell me what humble is? What is humble? What is arrogance? What do we mean by this? Am I more humble or more arrogant? What does that mean to you? Can someone tell me, what does it mean to you? It doesn't mean anything to you. Yeah.
Like down to earth.
Right, down to earth. What do you mean? Expand.
Like you can speak to everyone and smile.
MashaAllah.
That's humble.
MashaAllah. So even giving a smile is become humble. Is when someone shouts at you, swears at you, but at the end you're still smiling. You don't say anything. Can you understand? So in that there is a lesson. Someone is shouting at you, someone is putting you down, but your reaction is you still smile back at them. You become humble. You don't react to it. Anyone else? Be kind to someone. Okay. So not to think too much of yourself. So humbleness, well, when we mean humbleness is basically we're meaning that you lower yourself in front of others. You lower yourself in front of others. And you raise them up. So you lower yourself. And arrogance is when the person thinks they are better, they are more higher than that person. So when arrogance, I'm better, I deserve it, etc. So arrogance and humbleness is when you put others before you. You put them first before you. That's how it is. When you put others before yourself. This is humbleness. So these things are opposite. So we're talking about the opposite. One is humbleness, one is arrogance. And we'll go, these all intercedes to the next questions as well about gratefulness. So what we mean by gratefulness, am I more grateful or more ungrateful? So what do we mean by this? Can someone give me an example of being grateful then? What is an example of being grateful? Can someone give me an example of grateful? Yeah.
Being happy with whatever Allah has given you.
MashaAllah. So grateful is being happy with what Allah Azza wa Jalla has given you. MashaAllah. So what is ungrateful then?
So, for example, say now if I've got a car and it's not that good, but it still gets me A to B, and I'm always saying, I need a better car, this ain't good enough for me.
MashaAllah. So,
I'm grateful towards it.
MashaAllah. So the brother is saying that you have a car and the car gets you A to B. At least it gets me to A to B, even if the car is not that good. So I'm grateful of having a car or a blessing. MashaAllah. So this is a good example you've given. So really grateful is when you have the blessing and you direct it to Allah Azza wa Jal. And ungrateful is when you are not really appreciated of what the blessings you have. Like you mentioned, if a person has a blessing and he does not use it. We have a blessing and we don't utilize it. Which is what? You have a blessing of, you can say even this example, you have a blessing of reaching Allah Azza wa Jal. Everyone knows how to, come to like the retreats you have. If you don't come to the retreats, then you are ungrateful then. Really. You're ungrateful because you're not showing appreciation. You're not reflecting it. So for example, grateful is when you attribute the blessing to Allah Azza wa Jal. But when you attribute yourself, so one is that you attribute it to Allah. It's because of Allah I have received this. But when you attribute that blessing towards you, it is called pride. So it's me. It's all because of me that I have become successful. It's all because of me. My business is running well. It's all because of me. It's about me, I. That's how it is as well in there. So likewise, example, we didn't give example of, so do you give your seat up, for example, for relation to humbleness? So you have a seat in front of you. So do you sit on the floor or do you give the seat to others? That is humbleness. You sit on the floor. You let the other person have better means. So another thing is that, so next thing is that, am I patient or more impatient? So do I become patient or more impatient? So what does that mean? Can someone tell me, what does being patient and impatient mean?
Patient is somebody who, when in a time of test, doesn't disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with his body, mind, heart and soul.
So, sorry, repeat that again.
So when a person's tested or goes through some difficulty, doesn't disobey Allah,
Okay.
body and mind and strong.
Okay. So the person does not disobey Allah with his body, mind and heart, even if he's going through hardship. Okay, mashallah. So inshallah, we'll just quickly go through some of this. I know there's a lot of things we're going through and we're taking a bit of time. So how often do you repent? How often do you repent? This is a question. Is that the Prophet ﷺ used to repent? Is a sign? Did the Prophet ﷺ repent? Imagine in one sitting 70 times they repented. But what for? They were sinless. The example is that they were giving lesson to us. It's a lesson to us that we are the ones that actually need to do this. So how often do you repent? Once a day, twice a day, once a week? Or only when you do sins? This is the thing. Yeah. It's both really. So one is do 2 rakats salah and tawbah, or soon as something happens, you do astaghfar. It's really astaghfar. Soon as a person asks forgiveness with the heart, this is what it's referring to. Is that how often do we ask forgiveness with our hearts? How often do we really think of Allah and say, Allah, I've done this wrong and please forgive me. Even, okay, I'm going to do salah later when I have first opportunity, but with the heart and mind, how often do we do this? So the next part we mentioned, how is your soul in relationship with Allah Azza wa Jal? How often in the 24 hours do I spend in the presence of Allah? So in this bit is talking about the nafs really, the soul. In 24 hours, how often do you remember Allah Azza wa Jal? So the example I gave is like the phone. How often, we are always with the phone. We're always in relationship with the phone. There's actually a book that someone's written, how to cut relationship with your phone. How to distance yourself with the phone. And in that book, that I've actually read this book, they have a 30-day course. A 30-day course on how to leave the phone. And it said is that at the end of the 30 days, the person's relationship between spouse, relationship with people, better time management increased nearly 80% after leaving the phone. So this is, imagine that's to do with phone. But now we're talking about yourself. You're talking about your nafs. The nafs always wants to see things, always wants to eat things. It's like a baby, always wants anything that it sees. Now, how often do you remember and spend in the presence of Allah? How often do you do this? Now, you can write this down, inshallah. Do you think of Allah about yourself oneself, or do you think of Allah? Do you just think about yourself, or do you think of Allah, how you can better yourself? So inshallah, so do I love the Prophet ﷺ more than my parents, spouse, children, and myself? So this is like the sign of Iman, really. The definition of Iman is, do I love the Prophet ﷺ more than anything, more than my parents, spouse? So you should, think and ponder about this. Because what happens is that the relationship between, the close people you are close with, they can sometimes be on the way of the relationship with the Prophet ﷺ. For example, your parents might say, "Oh, why are you going to the mosque so often?" They're sometimes scared. "Why are you keeping a beard? Why are you becoming more religious?" So the people can become distractions. So who do you choose then? Do you choose the Prophet ﷺ more, or do you choose other people's words? Do you go to mixed weddings when the people are saying, "Come, you're my best friend," and you're not going to come? "You're my brother," you're not going to come. Wow, who do you choose? Do you choose the rights of the Prophet ﷺ more, or do you choose the rights of others and the creation more? So that is the question you should do. So inshallah, what we'll do now, we'll have a 5 minutes break, inshallah. Now, just to get things running and flowing, because I know you've been spending a lot of time sitting down, and you've also had a meal as well, so you'll be more tired as well. So inshallah, remember this retreat, now to go back to why you are here. You are here not really for eating, drinking, and sleeping. Remember this. You are here to learn how you can have a spiritual opening of your eyes, spiritual opening in the spiritual world. So if you wanted this, then no matter what, you'll be listening, you'll be partaking and observing. Inshallah. So inshallah, what we'll do, just stretch for your legs, inshallah, 5 minutes break, and then we'll carry on, inshallah. Inshallah, subhanaka bihamdika nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.